Brought to you by Penguin.
This Cursed House by Sandeen. Read by Shante McCormick.
Dedicated to the memory of Henrietta Louise Grant Roberson, the Angel, and David Edward Roberson Sr., the Storyteller. 1. Out of the corner of Jemma Barker's eye, the woman flickered, a shadow of light shimmering at the edges of her vision. "Don't look at him, Jemma." That was Mama's voice. "Ain't nothing but the devil's work if you look." And that was Daddy's. Taking a slow breath, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 on the exhale. Shakier than usual due to the train's rattling, Jemma stared into her light wool-skirted lap, where twisting fingers worked wrinkles into a white handkerchief. When she glanced over at the empty seat next to her, the woman was gone. Jemma smoothed the handkerchief, then her already smooth skirt, then her bobbed hair, the hot-combed bangs fluffing in the southern heat, humidity intent on disarray. The man who'd sat in that seat, who'd boarded with her when she'd left Chicago 2 days ago, had gotten off somewhere in southern Missouri, right when one of the white-jacketed porters had hung a colored sign in their car. The sign wasn't necessary, as only black passengers inhabited the car anyway. No white folks would sit in this space without a luggage rack, but with a flattened mouse in one corner. No one, no living person anyhow, had sat in the seat since. The car had steadily emptied as they traveled south. Jemma opened her black patent leather handbag and pulled out an envelope. She'd read the letter inside dozens of times, but she wanted to see it again to make sure it was real. It was dated less than a week after Marilyn Monroe had died, and even now, the papers were still making much of the actress's death. The letter read, August 10th, 1962. Dear Miss Jemma Barker, I am writing to offer you a position with the Duchon family in New Orleans, Louisiana. The Duchons are a prominent family in the city and believe you have the qualities we are seeking. You would have free room and board and be expected to live on the property. The pay is $300 per week. This is non-negotiable. You must call by August 31st should you wish to accept. Sincerely, Honorine Duchon. Of all the details in the letter, Jemma stared at the $300 weekly pay the most. It was more than 3 times what she'd earned as a teacher in Chicago before everything had fallen apart. So she had called Honorine Duchon one afternoon in mid-August a few weeks ago. Next stop, New Orleans. New Orleans, next stop, a porter announced, strolling down the wood floor aisles. He stopped next to a dozing woman and touched her shoulder, making sure she woke up in time. She, like Jemma, had a single square suitcase between her feet. Jemma put the letter away and smoothed her hair again before slipping white gloves onto her hands and a pillbox hat onto her head. Half an hour later, she joined a line of passengers who shared her color, disembarking after the white ones had already gotten off. Jemma stood for a minute on the concrete, purse in one hand, suitcase hanging from the other, the clean modern lines of the Union Passenger Terminal looming ahead of her. The heat was a womb. She thought summers in Chicago were bad, but nothing had prepared her for this. A white man in stovepipe slacks and a fedora jostled her as he hurried past, and then he turned back, perhaps to excuse himself. The beginnings of a frown set between Jemma's brows and chiding words formed behind her lips. Before she could say anything, however, his expression upon seeing a lone black woman in last season's jacket and skirt, the indifference that dulled his eyes, reminded her that she wasn't in Chicago. She remembered the colored sign hanging in the train car as she pressed her lips together, watching the man continue to his destination.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?